Hello everyone, Cotswolds Girl here. How are you? I hope everyone has had a really great Christmas and New Year break. I know we're all back into it and things just don't stop just because things happen. So anyway, we're back. Sorry it's been such a while since I have posted a video. I've had so much going on in the background. It's absolutely unreal and I can't wait to tell you all about it in this video. So we're going to jump right in. Anyway, so yeah, here we are. 2026, can't believe that that's actually upon us. And things on my end have been really, really hectic. I've just launched a brand new business. So I'm very, very excited that I am now an independent travel advisor. So I can now book, cruises, package holidays, anything sort of bespoke that people are looking for. So it could be, I could put together a package like a theme park package, or I can put together a safari or any particular thing. Obviously, subject matter expert Australia, so I can do all of that as well. So it's really, really exciting. I'm so happy to have launched that because again, it's something I can literally do as my side hustle, but I can do it for forever. So for me, it's really important that I'm sort of looking longer term now in terms of my career and money making and all of that, making sure that we're, keeping things afloat. And yeah, I think this is going to be a really, really fab opportunity. So yeah, really excited to launch that this year. So that's just getting underway now. So yes, that's all good. And that's, again, it will probably end up being a full form of income for me. But at the moment, I'm still doing the recruitment side of things, which is great, which is, again, really busy. That this is just going to allow a little bit of extra freedom, which is amazing. So been in busy sort of launching that and trying to organise the rest of my year, which has been great. And looking at putting out some blogs and different things over the course of the next few weeks. But I wanted to talk about something that's sort of been coming up in the press over the last over the last week, really. And it leads on from a lot of stuff that I was talking about in my previous blogs about sort of family relationships, and sort of personalities and bullying, and how that dynamic can really create issues if you can't see it for what it is. And the example that I'm going to use this week is the BECKHAM Saga. So if you haven't caught up on all of that, the eldest of the Beckham children, who hasn't, and look, who am I to judge? But, hasn't really done anything for himself other than be a Beckham. Tried a few different ventures, hasn't really worked. Ended up marrying into money in the US and since then has pretty much taken exception to his entire family. And on the other end of that are parents with, 4 children. So, he's not an only child. He's the eldest of 4. And the impact that all of this issue has had, not only on the parents, but also on his siblings, has just been absolutely heartbreaking. And you can read between the lines about, how the far reach that this has and the unintended consequences of his actions then has a ripple effect. And that just absolutely breaks my heart because, again, having been in a situation where things in families are always sort of, can be quite tenuous, but the blowback and the unexpected consequences of people's actions, they don't see that in the moment. It's all very well to be, angry and want to lash out and have your say and all this sort of stuff. But the impact of that, it's not just about you. It's about the others that impacts without you even thinking about it. And that, I think, has been the sad thing this week, really, because at the end of the day, and look, I'm going to say it because this is my own opinion and it is what it is, but, a child who's had everything given to them and's never really done any hard graft and has always sort of been, gifted everything, to have a tantrum about having been given everything, doesn't really sit well with me. And, the wife of Brooklyn Beckham, literally, the daughter of a second or third wife, grown up, having never wanted for anything, having always been given everything, having always been told that, she's the princess and she's the this and that. And it breeds, it's clear that it breeds jealousy, and she's clearly jealous of Victoria Beckham. She's clearly jealous of the Beckham's relationship, well, their ex-relationship with Brooklyn, and so she has now set out to make sure that relationship is broken. So, it's everything that was put out this week in that statement, you could absolutely read, was formulated from the perspective of her. And the reason that I say that is because when you actually look at what was being said and the examples that were given, in any of those particular moments, they were all focused around how the wife, her interpretation of a particular situation. That was never, anything that was said, that he's always, been battling against it. Have you really? At the end of the day, he was given money and given a leg up and given exposure by his parents to assist him on his journey. He then makes nothing of that, and that's kind of on him. But any sort of advantage that he has always been because he's had the people around him to be able to open doors to give him that exposure. It'd be a different story if, he went off to university and studied and got a degree and went into commerce and built a name for himself, but that hasn't been the case, and at the end of the day, and I apologise if this sounds off the cuff, but he's an average Joe without, if he didn't have that last name, he's average Joe. And, someone like her probably would never in a million years have even given him the time of day had he not had that star factor because of his parents. And, to be able to then turn around and turn that back on his parents, saying that, blaming them in a lot of, about his circumstances. It just take a breath. It just really gets me going, because at the end of the day, and I've been brought up with the fact that, there's never a free lunch. You always have to work for what you're given, but working for the outcomes that you want gives you so much self-satisfaction, so much self-pride. And, being a self-made person gives you the ability to be able to say, do you know what? I've actually worked hard for what I've done, and I'm really proud of my achievements. What can I, and look, maybe this is playing devil's advocate, but what has he ever actually achieved on his own? Ever? What has he actually achieved on his own? So maybe it's inferiority complex that's bubbling up to the surface. Maybe it's, skipping from, one dominant personality to another dominant personality within his life. I don't know. But it's really sad to see. And as I mentioned earlier, the unintended consequences of all of that, and, blowing this up in such a public way is that it impacts his brothers and his sister. Now, imagine what they, like, that they obviously will have massive love for their parents, but also massive love for their brother. And imagine feeling torn between that and having to choose between that. It's just, it's just outrageous, and to have to come out publicly and say all of these things. Honestly, it just breaks my heart. Leave your family stuff in the, at home. Leave it in front of the telly. Leave it on the couch. Don't, blow it up for the world to see, because at the end of the day, the world's cringing. The world is cringing at it because it just, it's petty, and it's, it behooves no one. It doesn't shine a good light on anyone. And, to publicly humiliate people, it's not okay. And I really, really do feel sorry for the others who are having to deal with these unintended consequences. Imagine the questions that his brothers and sisters are having to field from workmates and from friends and from everyone afield. Just imagine that. And look, from the parents' perspective, okay, they're grown adults, and yes, they can deal with all of these things, and I'm sure they've got PR and all of this sort of stuff, but it's not just about that. It's so I really feel sorry for for Romeo and Cruz and for Harper. And look, who am I to say anything? Like, I mean, I'm just Joe No One, but I just see the way that the relationships and how this can occur in a family. And, I think sometimes just leave your business to your own business. But anyway, that's just my take on the whole situation. And as I said, we've all been through some family dramas. And again, it's, bringing other people into your drama, dragging people into it. I think that, if I've got a problem with someone, then I will go to that person and say, look, there's an issue here. We should talk about this. We should sit down and talk about it and thrash it out. If we can come to a resolution, great. If we can't, okay, then that's fine. We'll leave it where it is and we can just move forward. But to be involving other people in your crap, why? I just, it makes it uncomfortable on the other people. It just, because it brings them into a scenario that they don't particularly want to have to deal with. I just think that having done that in such a public way is really, really tricky. And as I said, I've, throughout my time, throughout my life, there's been issues that I've had with, various people and whatnot. And the way to deal with it is, being adults about it. Whereas this just looks like children throwing their toys out the pram and, throwing mud at a wall and hoping something sticks. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Like, it's really, really childish. It's really, really sad. But yeah, so I guess moral of the story is, everyone goes through stuff, but if you can find a way to be able to deal with it in a mature manner without affecting other people, then maybe that is the best way forward. And look, I'm no psychologist. These are just my opinions. As I said, it just hit home a little bit about how, you without intending to hurt other people, by dragging people into your situation, there are unintended consequences to a lot of these things. So it's just a matter of, I guess, having a bit of a thought process in and around, okay, well, what are my actions going to adversely impact someone else? And if so, is that the intended consequence? And if not, maybe I should think twice about it. But look, hey, who am I? As I said, this is just my opinion. On other matters, I have my doggies here, which I'm going to show you, who I absolutely love. They're absolutely plum-tuckered, sitting down there, just watching me do my thing. The other thing I really wanted to show you, and this is going to be quite odd, I'm absolutely in love with Vinted at the moment. Absolutely in love with it. I've gotten so much good stuff, and one of my biggest things, I love doing club size, and I think I've sort of said this, I love going to the gym. One of my favourite legging brands here in the UK is going out of business, so I've bought up like a whole lot of Tiki Boo leggings, because they all glow in the dark, so it's brilliant. So I bought those, but look at these. Now, I had a pair of multicoloured one of these back in 1992 when I was in year 7, and I was playing basketball at the time as well. I literally wore them until they fell off my feet, and even when they fell off my feet, I ended up gluing the sole back on to give it a bit more life until they fell off again. So anyway, have a look at these bad boys. Excuse. Look at them! Air Jordan 7s nonetheless, and I am absolutely in love with them. So yeah, today's been a really good day. And I hope you like my jumper too. It's one that I got for Christmas, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I absolutely love it. I'll put up the QR code after all of this, but yeah. Anyway, have a great weekend. I know that we're all involved in this saga and it's hurting everyone's brains, but look, you know, from my opinion, there always is a way forward as long as you're prepared to be a mature adult about it. But anyway, have a great weekend. Lovely to speak to you all, and I will see you in the next video. Mwah!